I used to see failure as a full stop, the end, period. But now I'm choosing to see it as a comma. And so in this video, I'm going to talk about what to do. What are your next steps when you feel like you've failed? If you don't know me, my name is Nadia, and I was 35 years old when I moved from our island home in Bermuda to Bali, Indonesia with my family. And we've been figuring things out since we've been here. We have had lessons and curveballs and things that have gone better than we imagined, and things that honestly we never expected to happen have happened. For instance, I had a business that I had run for about 8 years. It was successful from its first year. We had won multiple awards. It was a PR and communications consulting business back home in Bermuda. And I hoped and figured that it would continue with me for years, decades to come, as something that I could do and something that I had created so that I was getting paid a consulting rate and therefore didn't have to necessarily work crazy hours. I could still have a good balance and good quality of life. But the thing that I did not expect was that the world would change so much, that AI would come and be able to write press releases in 30 seconds, and that the whole landscape for my particular industry would just change so drastically overnight. And so I have had to pivot. I've had to rethink about what I want to do, what I want to pursue, how I want to leave a legacy and make an impact and make an income. And it's been a very interesting couple of years. Thankfully, I still am able to do some freelance consulting work and communications work and some freelance writing. But it's definitely changed because it used to be a lucrative full-time business and now it's just a small side hustle. I am really excited to share with you what I've been doing, what's been working for me, but also to give you some practical steps if you are feeling like you have failed, like life did not go the way that you wanted or the way that you expected, and you are now trying to figure out what is next for you and your life. So the first thing that I want to say is that failure is something that you can grow from. It's something that you can learn from. It's something that doesn't have to define who you are. It's not something that we should be taking on as part of our identity. There's so many successful people who have failed dozens, hundreds, thousands of times, and what really defines them is their ability to get back up and keep trying and keep fighting and keep moving forward and try different solutions and try to figure out a different way to do that thing so that they're not quitting. And so I have really realized this in my own life, that as I get older, I'm seeing that failure is not something that I have to take on and something that disqualifies me or something that I should feel guilty or shameful about. Is actually something that I can look at and start to see the data that this failure, quote unquote, is teaching me. And the reality is there's always something to learn from when things fail, when things don't work out the way that we want. It could just be a matter of time that we have to just keep being persistent and be a little patient and then allow God to open the right door or allow that business to start to attract the right customers. But I would also say it's an opportunity for us to see if we maybe need to change something that we're doing. So maybe it's not a whole different business that we start, but we just change how we're doing it. Maybe we're on Instagram, but that's really not our platform. Maybe our platform might be YouTube or maybe blogging. There's so many different ways that we can tweak things so that we're reaching the right people and that we're doing things in a way that feels more aligned. And like I said, I didn't expect for things to change so drastically in my particular industry. I had gone to university for professional writing. I graduated from University of Surrey in the UK. I then went on to do a postgraduate qualification in journalism in Newcastle in the UK. And I was hired immediately after graduating from my first bachelor's degree with a newspaper in Bermuda. And I worked there for around 7 years in 2 different sections of the newspaper. And then I pivoted to PR and communications, and it just seemed like it was something that was straightforward, it was safe, it was practical, it was a way to use my skills in a way that could also help businesses to protect their reputation and to brand and to grow and market themselves. But things have changed so drastically in this industry and so many other industries because of AI and technology, and the reality is that what I'm choosing to do going forward is to pause and to pivot. I used to think that it was actually a punishment if I had failed, but I'm actually seeing it as an opportunity to just rest, to recalibrate, and to continue to figure out those ways that I can make small changes so that I can actually step into a new career that feels more aligned and more exciting for me. And so the truth of the matter is, although PR was something that felt like it was a natural growth, a natural next step for me in my career, it wasn't something, I would say, especially in the last 2 years since having my daughter, that I felt very excited about. I felt like I was just going through the motions, doing the work to get paid, but not really loving it and not really feeling very connected to the work that I was doing. There's so much bureaucracy in different companies, and to be honest, I've really lost, unfortunately, the drive to climb the corporate ladder. It's just not a desire of mine anymore. I want to make an income and an impact, but I don't desire to do it in a way that is draining energetically, in a way where I have to compromise on my values or compromise even on the way that I like to work. I have, unfortunately, maybe developed these really strong boundaries around like my family time and how I want my day and my life to look. And so for me, any work that I do has to collaborate with that, has to align with that. And so because of all of these changes, not only in my personal life with having another child, but also in the industry, I've definitely felt in my quiet times with God that what I'm actually supposed to be doing is pivoting. And I had initially, back in 2016, I studied an online course in coaching, and I did a little something with it. I hosted like these goal setting workshops for women of faith, and they were just incredible and so much fun. But that was pretty much the extent of it. And I hadn't really gone any further. I never really took on any one-to-one clients, or paying clients at least. And I always had this sense of imposter syndrome, and I still have it to some degree. I was with a friend of mine in Bermuda before I left for Christmas, and I was telling her how I felt about coaching, because I've now, since then, in 2024, I took the same course and program. I did it again. I did the live round one more time while I was on my maternity leave. My friend immediately recognized that what I was feeling and my hesitation in putting myself out there in regards to coaching and this block, so to speak, was imposter syndrome. It was me feeling like I wasn't qualified enough, even though I've taken this course twice, even though I've hosted dozens of goal setting workshops live, in person, and online, even though I've had different small groups with women that have a coaching element to them, even though I've hosted a mastermind with some friends that have a coaching element as well, even though I did pro bono clients, I still had this block. But I look at the quote unquote failure of having to wind down my business mostly and only doing it as a hobby instead of a full-time career. I also see it as a redirection. I see it as an opportunity to try something new, something that I've always wanted to do, something that I've always wanted to help people and support people, because coaching literally saved my life. It helped me to rethink the stories I was telling myself. It helped me to rethink what I thought about myself and my life and my future and my potential. And it's literally been the best thing that ever came into my life, but I haven't done anything with it. I always put it on the back burner because I always chose the safe route, the corporate route, the route that I thought was gonna get me to retirement. And I realize now that I'm being challenged. I'm being maybe kicked like a little birdie out of the nest, so that I actually put myself out there and am willing to serve in this area, because there are people for sure that are where I was 10 years ago. They are in an environment that makes them feel small and makes them feel stuck and makes them feel like they no longer have dreams. They've been disappointed. They've dealt with trauma. They dealt with grief, and they are no longer thinking about what could be better and what possibilities lie ahead. They're just stuck in this feeling of they can't move because they're going to disappoint people, or they're going to not meet people's expectations, or there's the risk of failure, or the fear of it not working out, all of these things. And thankfully, through coaching, I realized a very powerful lesson that we are not trees and we can always move. God has given us that freedom, that gift to move if we're ever in a space that is for sure drowning us and dimming our light and making us feel like we're a wilted flower. And so I really hope that if you are resonating with any of these words, that you really consider coaching, not necessarily with me, but with any coach that's out there. Because even though ChatGPT is great and can give you some wonderful words, I really feel like that one-to-one personal connection, that accountability, that cheerleading, that support is really going to help you to get clear on not only what you need to do to move forward, but also just spotting some of the patterns that you're maybe making in your life that you cannot recognize for yourself. You're too close. You're seeing it in the mirror and it's too close for you to see it. But once you step back or have an outside, unbiased perspective and powerful questions that you can answer yourself and give yourself that space, it will do a world of good for you. So if you haven't yet ever tried coaching, it's the one thing that I would recommend that literally changed everything about who I am and the road and the path that I was on. I was definitely going to stay in Bermuda and just try to suck it up and make it work and figure it out. And I am so grateful that I started to think about other paths that were open to me, the path of entrepreneurship, the path of being a remote worker, the path of traveling, and the path of living overseas and creating a life on my own terms. That's another thing that has definitely changed. I now see failure as an opportunity to pivot and to redirect. One thing I realized is that starting over requires humility. It's not easy to start from zero. It's not easy to have 40 subscribers after so many different videos. It's not easy to only get 1 or 2 likes on your videos. It's not easy to feel like you're maybe talking and like you're not reaching the right people, or that people aren't interested in what you have to say. But the reality is, and this is something that Stephen Bartlett said at an event that he did in Bali, was that the cost of entry is embarrassment. You have to be willing to risk a little bit of your pride, your ego, to start at zero, to start where it is embarrassing in the beginning. It's embarrassing to not just hit the ground running and to have so many people that are interested in your content and to put yourself out there and to stumble over your words and to still put something out there that's not perfect. But having that sense of humility and being willing to say, even though what I'm doing is not perfect, I am going to get 1 degree better every week that I'm doing this. I am willing to put in the time, the effort, the work, so that I can get 1% better. And in a year's time, I'm going to be so much further ahead. In 2 years' time, I might be exactly where I always dreamed of being. Who knows, right? It might take me 3 years or 5 years. But I think it's just the art of starting, giving up some of your pride, giving up some of your ego, and stepping into that place of humility where you are just willing to look a little foolish and try something new, and for it to be embarrassing, but for you to dare to get better with every video, every week, every month. And so that's exactly where I am right now with these videos. I am not someone who's naturally very good at speaking to camera, and I'm having to train myself to just speak like I'm talking to a friend, and trying to figure out how YouTube works and all of the different nuances with a hook and a thumbnail and a title and keywords. And I get these emails every day almost. And they're from different people who, I guess, see that I have a small channel that's not really growing very fast. And they have all these ideas for how I can grow using SEO and how I can invest in their services and 10 times my results. All of these things sound so shiny and so exciting, but I think that you also have to trust the process a little bit, because at least this is the mistake that I made before with a magazine I had. I was just trying to bypass the journey. I was trying to fast forward to the end result, and I was paying all these people, but when I looked up, I was paying so much more than I was making. And I understand that might be the case for the first little while, but it was 2 years in and I was getting so depleted and burnt out. And so trusting the process, allowing myself to grow organically, allowing myself to grow one person at a time, one soul at a time, and just being grateful for the little growth that I have here and there, because I definitely seen improvement. I think I had in maybe January, I had like maybe 4 subscribers. So now to be at 40, that's 10 times what I had before. And so I have to always remind myself to be grateful for the small steps, the small progress, and not try to skip ahead and just fast forward to the end, because it doesn't work like that. We all have to pay our dues and do the work. And yes, God can definitely bless us, but it doesn't usually happen overnight. Sometimes it takes years or decades of putting in the work to really see the fruits of your labor. And so the last thing that I wanted to share is that you don't need a perfect plan. You don't need everything to go perfectly, for everything to be scripted out, for everything to be listed and so clear for you to move forward. I think you just have to trust the process. You have to trust the story that God is trying to write in your life, and the redirection that He's already caused, and the pivot that you've already agreed is happening, and allow yourself to take it one day at a time without the perfect plan. That's exactly why I've been trying my best to stick to this 100 videos on YouTube in 100 days. I'm not even sure at this point if I'm going to hit it, but I'm going to try my best. I'm going to keep going, even when life gets busy, even when I feel tired. I want to keep this promise to myself, and it's not going to look perfect, especially because I have kids, I have a husband, I have a very busy life in general, but that doesn't stop me from trying and from giving it the best shot I have. I'm actually hopeful that I'll get there. And what I'm trying to do on some days when I have a little extra time is record more than one video. And so that helps when I can't get to it, or the upload speed is too slow and I just don't have the patience to wait up for 4 hours to get it loaded. What's happened, at least in my case, is that I really do feel like it's so important to keep promises to ourselves. I believe that's how we not only build competence, but how we build confidence and belief in ourselves. I really went through a season after I had my second daughter where I was setting these goals, but I wasn't keeping the promises to myself. I was not finishing things to completion, like finishing a whole website or finishing a whole product. I was chopping and changing things all the time. And I just felt really low and really discouraged. And so for me, this 100-day challenge for YouTube is about myself. It's about just making sure that I keep this promise to myself, that I have this bit of evidence that I set something that was a really hard challenge and I actually met it, that I actually reached my goal. And I'm giving myself a little grace because I do have kids and commitments, but I'm really hopeful that I'll get to it at least within a week of what I'm supposed to. And so that's my goal. I'm sticking to it. And I really thank those of you who have come along on this journey and learned some things from my experience, or even just the lessons that I've learned, and can apply it to your own relocation journey. I've spoken on this 1,000,001 times, but relocating has been one of the best decisions I could ever make for my mental health, for my marriage, for my belief in myself and my way of seeing the world. And I'm so grateful that I took that risk, and everything hasn't worked out perfectly. There's been things that maybe to the outside could be viewed as a failure, like my business pivot and me changing course. But I actually see it as an opportunity for me to grow in an area that I previously probably wouldn't have taken the risk with either. I would have stayed in my bubble. I would have stayed in my safe skill set of PR and communications, and never really challenged myself to step out and help people with my coaching skill set. And so I'm really excited and I'm really hopeful. So before you go, let me know in the comments, like, what is something that you have quote unquote failed at, and how did you choose to see that failure as an opportunity to learn or grow? I'd love to hear. So thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in another video.